The following special broadcast of Opera in the Park from San Francisco is being presented with a stereo simulcast on KQED FM radio at 88.5. This is Channel 9, KQED, San Francisco. Production and broadcast of Opera in the Park by KQED is made possible in part by funds provided by the San Francisco Examiner. Major funding is provided by the members of KQED.
Welcome to the 10th Annual Opera in the Park. Live from the Music Concourse of San Francisco's Golden Gate Park. Presented by the San Francisco Opera, Terence A. McEwen, General Director, and by the San Francisco Examiner and the Friends of Recreation and Parks. Our soloists on today's concert, soprano Monserrat Caballe, soprano Rebecca Cook, and tenor Ermanno Mauro, with the San Francisco Opera Orchestra conducted by Herbert Adler. Good afternoon once again, and a hearty welcome here to San Francisco's Golden Gate Park. I'm Bill Trieste, and it's indeed a wonderful, warm, sunny day. Both outside, the sun is shining, and believe me, the sun is shining in the hearts of the 25,000 opera lovers who have assembled here at Golden Gate Park for today's concert. They started at 5 o'clock this morning, and they've been coming ever since. As you can see, that's what the park looked like at about 8:30 this morning. There have been balloons, there's soap bubbles, a spirit here at these Opera in the Park concerts, such as I think exists probably nowhere else in San Francisco and perhaps nowhere else in the world. Every year, many people have come here. They prepared picnics. As a matter of fact, this year they had a picnic competition, and they had something like 99 entries. There was crystal, china service, candelabra, and just a few minutes ago, the winner was chosen. He was Dick Misek. It's really an absolutely wonderful scene here at the park. This is the 10th annual, and there, for example, is some food prepared by Sal Dominguez, Chuck Yee, and John Macon. They've been coming here every year since these concerts started. It started as a group of 3, and they now number 65. I understand that they got here late last night, started to prepare. They did some of their preparations. They were back here at 5 o'clock this morning, and as far as the quality of their food is concerned, I certainly can attest to that. This, you know, is the 10th annual Opera in the Park concert. You might like to know that these concerts were begun in 1971 when the Friends of Recreation and Parks, a new organization, presented a concert in the tradition of the great Tetrazzini, who, back in the year 1914, had sung an aria from Aida in a ceremony dedicating a statue of Verdi here in Golden Gate Park. Among the distinguished singers who have participated in these opera concerts, and many of them on more than one occasion, Licia Albanese, Luciano Pavarotti, Ingvar Vixel, Beverly Sills, Renato Scotto, Placido Domingo, Shirley Barrett, Monserrat Caballe, last year as well as this year, Marilyn Horne, and Herbert Adler, the conductor of today's concert, who just retired as General Director of the San Francisco Opera, has conducted every single concert here since the year 1973. And now to welcome you and to welcome the audience here at San Francisco's Golden Gate Park, Tom Malloy, General Manager of San Francisco Park and Recreation Department.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tom Malloy, the manager of the Recreation and Park Department, and I'd like to welcome you and members of our television audience to this free 10th annual opera concert in the park. The basic rule is, one more time, respect thy neighbor and do not stand up, so that everyone who's been sitting here can enjoy it to the maximum. We have probably close to 50,000 people here today, which is a living testimony to San Francisco's enduring love affair with opera. And I'd like to begin by having you acknowledge the redoubtable orchestra, the San Francisco Opera Orchestra, under the leadership of Zayvon Malikian. And as you're aware, this is an extraordinary concert being delivered under unusual circumstances. And because of that, I'd like to introduce the new General Director of the San Francisco Opera, Mr. Terry McEwen, who is going to announce the selections this afternoon. Terry?
Thank you. Excuse my hat. I was getting sunburned on the top of my head. As a matter of fact, this hat has the best of both worlds. It's an Arab-made yarmulke. I have some good news and some bad news, which is generally the case. When I accepted the position of General Director of the San Francisco Opera, I knew that it was not going to be a bowl of cherries. I didn't know that my inaugural weekend was going to have one disaster after another. As you all probably know, on Friday night, we opened with a gala performance of The Masked Ball, featuring Monserrat Caballe and Luciano Pavarotti, and Madame Caballe suffered a severe indisposition. Before the performance, she had been ill for several days, but heroically she went on and sang the performance and finished it. During the performance, I made an announcement about the fact that she was not well. I therefore presumed that Madame Caballe would not be able to come here today. However, this wonderful lady has been taking very good care of herself and is very, very anxious to show San Francisco how much she loves this city. Madame Caballe will not sing the whole program, but she will do what she can. She will sing at least one aria. I'll tell you about that in a moment, and hopefully two. I think if we give her a warm enough welcome, we might get two arias out of her today. The bad news is that at that same performance of Ballo in Maschera, Luciano Pavarotti began a sore throat and to have the sniffles. And at 1 o'clock this morning, he telephoned me and said, "I am worried. I can hardly talk." I set my alarm for 8 a.m., but Luciano woke me up just before my alarm went off, and he could hardly speak. He whispered into the telephone. He is not with us today. He's on an airplane on the way back to New York to see his doctor to try to get better before opening night at the Metropolitan Opera. However, we have some wonderful surprises for you. By the way, I'm hoarse. The weekend I've had, I think I have every right to be hoarse too. At any rate, we have some marvelous surprises for you. Last night, a magnificent tenor made a thrilling debut in Norma at the San Francisco Opera. His name is Ermanno Mauro, and we're happy to welcome here to this special event today. Ermanno is a great singer who has starred, of course, at the Met and La Scala and the Vienna State Opera and all the great opera houses in the world, and I'm very happy that he made his debut with us last night, and he'll be a regular visitor to San Francisco. I also have another surprise for you, a wonderful young lady whom you may remember from the 1981 spectacular performances of Carmen, conducted by Maestro Adler, Miss Rebecca Cook. Miss Cook's presence with us today makes me particularly happy and proud because she is a graduate of the Merilla program and our training program started by Maestro Adler and which I intend to continue and produce wonderful artists like Rebecca Cook. I'm going to read you, and so I hope you'll remember, because since the changes, we decided to throw away the programs rather than get you upset. So I'm going to read the first half of the program to you slowly and carefully, and then I'll come out again before the second half and tell you what we're playing. That we do know what we're playing on the second half, but but I'll be out to remind you. Maestro Adler is going to begin with the Overture to the Flying Dutchman by Richard Wagner. Then Madame Caballe will sing L'altra notte in fondo al mare from Mefistofele of Boito. And as I say, she may favor us with a second number, but Maestro Adler will let you know how she feels. We then have Mr. Mauro singing an aria we all love, E lucevan le stelle from Tosca of Puccini. Maestro Adler will conduct the Intermezzo from I Pagliacci of Leoncavallo. Miss Cook will sing Michaela's aria from Carmen of Bizet. And Maestro Adler will conduct the Overture to Ruslan and Ludmilla of Glinka. And then we will have our intermission, and I'll see you after that. Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. Love you. May I now introduce the man who has conducted these concerts since they began, and I hope, and I know you hope, that he'll conduct them as long as they last. Maestro Kurt Herbert Adler.
With the San Francisco Opera, Terence A. McEwen, General Director of the San Francisco Opera, announcing today's program and introducing Maestro Kurt Herbert Adler on the podium right now to begin today's 10th Annual Opera in the Cart concert with Richard Wagner's Overture to the Flying Dutchman. the overture to Richard Wagner's The Flying Dutchman, the opening work on today's 10th annual Opera in the Park concert. Members of the San Francisco Opera Orchestra conducted by Kurt Herbert Adler. Next, an aria from Boito's Mephistopheles, performed by one of the most illustrious sopranos in the world, Monserrat Caballe. Act 3 of Boito's Mephistopheles takes place in the prison cell where Margarita awaits her executioner. Faust has seduced and then deserted her. She now stands accused of poisoning her. In her grief, her confused mind wanders at the laments, her fate, prays for mercy, and in soaring vocal lines, she distractedly compares her soul to a bird which longs to fly far away. In just a moment, Monserrat Caballe, and here is Madame Caballe, and the audience here at the Music Concourse in Golden Gate Park is on its feet. As perhaps you know, Madame Caballe was ill during the opening performance Friday night, the opening of the San Francisco Opera's 1982 season in Verdi's The Mass Ball. She went on and finished the opera anyway, and no one really thought she was going to be here today. But as she said, she loves San Francisco so much, she couldn't help but come here. And now, in just a moment, one of the favorite stars of all opera everywhere, and particularly here in San Francisco. She was one of the soloists at last year's Opera in the Park concert, Monserrat Caballe, in an aria from the third act of Boito's Mephistopheles. the aria notte from the third act of Burrito's Mephistopheles, sung by soprano Monserrat Caballe. As Terence McEwen, the new general director of the opera, announced at the opening of this concert, we're not sure at this moment, because of her illness, whether Monserrat Caballe is going to do another aria or not. I'm sure that the audience here and those of you at home right now are hoping indeed that she will. I don't know yet, but we should know in just a moment. It looks to me like, because of the warmth of the applause here at Golden Gate Park, that she will. And if she does, it'll be an aria from Andrea Leclerc, the aria Il son lumile ancella. Andrea Leclerc is the best known of the five operas of Francesco Celea. He was a contemporary of Puccini, Leoncavallo, and Mascagni. Opera's story deals with life in the theatrical world of 18th century Paris, and in her first act aria, the famous actress Adriana Leclerc describes her role as a creative artist. She sings, "I am only the humble servant of that glorious art which can touch man's heart." And we're not absolutely certain right now, as of this moment, whether we'll have that aria performed by Monserrat Caballe or not. I would certainly say, from the tears that are going on here, that it's going to be difficult indeed for her to resist this audience. Most of the audience, and there's some 25,000, are on their feet right now.
Monserrat will sing for you by Cilea, Io son lumile ancella.
And now, as Maestro Adler just announced, Monserrat Caballe has agreed to do another aria. It's an aria from Cilea's opera, Adriana de Couvreur. Monserrat Caballe and the aria Io son numile ancella from Francesco Cilea's Adriana Le Couvert. And as this audience is responding here, we must note once again that Madame Caballe has once again graced San Francisco Opera's audience, singing when perhaps she was quite indisposed, as she did on the opening night of the masked ball. She sang two arias at this Opera in the Park concert tonight, one from Guido's Mephistopheles and that aria from Adriana Le Couvert. She's certainly one of the most illustrious sopranos in the world. She made her long-awaited debut with the San Francisco Opera in the title role of Puccini's Turandot during the 1977 season. She returned the following year as Tosca, 1979, the role of Queen Elizabeth, then last season, Semaramidi, and she sang, of course, here at the Opera of the Park. Next, we're going to have an aria by the distinguished Metropolitan Opera tenor, Ermanno Mauro. Ermanno Mauro, who made his debut last night with the opera Norma with the San Francisco Opera. Since her operatic debut in 1956, Caballe, Many Flowers, put up on the stage here. She's greeting not only the audience here, but also the orchestra and all the wonderful San Francisco opera lovers. They've been waiting for her. There was some doubt, as you probably have known, that she might sing at today's concert because of her illness during opening night of the masked ball. But she came and sang not one aria, but two arias. And this audience is responding. Ermanno Mauro, our tenor, who will be singing now an aria from Tosca, a lucevan la stelle, made his debut last night in Norma with the San Francisco Opera. He's a leading tenor with the Metropolitan Opera. He was born in Trieste, made his Canadian debut with the Edmonton Opera. He's sung in all the world-famous opera houses around the world, La Scala, at the Met, all over the world. He'll be singing the favorite aria from Tosca, a lucevan la stelle. Like so many operatic arias, this famous third-act aria from Tosca is a sadly moving reminiscence of a happier past. The painter, Cavaradossi, condemned to die by his political enemy, writes a farewell letter to his beloved Tosca. In despair, he recalls the time when the stars were shining brightly and they shared their blissful moments together. And now, Ermanno Mauro in the aria E lucevan la stelle from Puccini's Tosca.
Ed ora
The aria e lucevan le stelle from Puccini's Tosca, performed by tenor Ermanno Mauro. Ermanno Mauro is singing at this afternoon's concert in place of the ailing Luciano Pavarotti. As many of you may know, may have heard, Pavarotti began a cold at the opening night performance of the Masked Ball. At midnight or so last night, he telephoned Terence McEwen, the new general director of the San Francisco Opera, said he was worried. He didn't sound very good on the phone. And at 8 o'clock this morning, according to Terry McEwen, Luciano Pavarotti called him. He could hardly speak on the telephone. He's on his way back to New York to see his doctor. And Ermanno Mauro, who made his debut last night with the San Francisco Opera in Bellini's Norma, is our tenor today. He'll be singing more arias on the program, and will be joining Rebecca Cook in the two arias and the duet from the first act of Puccini's La Boheme to conclude the program. And now, in just a moment, Herbert Adler will conduct the San Francisco Opera Orchestra in the Intermezzo from Leoncavallo's Pagliacci. Although it's written to be performed without intermission, Pagliacci is divided into two acts or main scenes by a brief intermezzo, which follows the great tenor aria, Vesti la giubba. By the way, later in the program, after an intermission, Ermanno Mauro will sing that aria. Now, the intermezzo from Pagliacci. The intermezzo from Leoncavallo's Pagliacci. The aria Vesti la giubba will be sung later in the program by our tenor today, Ermanno Mauro. Next, we'll have the third act aria of Michaela from Bizet's Carmen, sung by soprano Rebecca Cook. One of the many well-known excerpts from Bizet's Carmen is this lovely aria from the third act. Despite her youth and her fears, Michaela has ventured into the smuggler's territory in search of Don Jose. She's promised his mother that she'll find him and win him back. I said that nothing would frighten me, she sings, but she realizes too late the danger she's in. As the aria draws to a close, she utters a fervent plea to God for his protection. The third act aria, Michaela's aria from Bizet's Carmen, performed by soprano Rebecca Cook, a role that Rebecca Cook performed during the 1981 season of the San Francisco Opera. She also appeared that same year, last season, as Gahilda in the Valkyrie. She was first place winner in the grand finals of the 1978 San Francisco Opera auditions, and we'll hear more from Rebecca Cook on today's 10th annual Opera in the Park concert. Here once again is Rebecca Cook to acknowledge the applause of the audience here at the Music Concourse. She is substituting for part of this program for the ailing Monserrat Caballe, and rightfully a bouquet of flowers for Rebecca Cook. Rebecca Cook, the aria from the third act of Bizet's Carmen. Now, just before intermission, the overture to Glinka's opera, Ruslan and Ludmilla. It's a five-act opera, the story of three princes who seek the hand of the princess Ludmilla. An evil magician captures Ludmilla. She's rescued by the favorite of the three princes. Now, Herbert Adler, the overture to Glinka's Ruslan and Ludmilla. The overture to Glinka's opera Ruslan and Ludmilla, performed by members of the San Francisco Opera Orchestra, conducted by Maestro Herbert Adler, who just shook hands with the concertmaster of the orchestra, Zarvan Malikian. The orchestra is on its feet, and many of the audience here at Golden Gate Park on this wonderful sunny afternoon at this 10th annual Opera in the Park concert is also on its feet. We've now come to the intermission of today's Opera in the Park concert. I might let you know that during this intermission, you'll have a chance to meet through interviews conducted by John Rozak, by the artists on today's program, soprano Rebecca Cook and tenor Ermanno Mauro, as well as an interview with the new general director of the San Francisco Opera, Terence McEwen, who, by the way, will introduce the second half of today's program following the intermission. This is the 10th annual Opera in the Park concert, coming to you from the Music Concourse here in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park. Once again, one of the most festive, joyous occasions in San Francisco. You're watching KQED, Channel 9, San Francisco. If you're listening to the simulcast on FM, you're listening to KQED FM San Francisco, 88.5. And those of you in the Sacramento area are listening to KBIE Channel 6, Sacramento and Stockton, watching the program on our sister station there, KBIE Channel 6, Sacramento, Stockton. By the way, many of those who are here in the park this afternoon, and perhaps some of you at home, might want an opportunity to watch and hear this Opera in the Park concert once again. I should let you know that it will be rebroadcast tomorrow, Monday night at 8 o'clock. Both on KQED Channel 9 and KQED FM that you'll find at 88.5. Earlier today, during rehearsal, KQED's John Rozak talked with two of the soloists on today's Opera in the Park concert.
Pleasure of talking during intermission with Ermanno Mauro and Rebecca Cook, our two artists today here at the Opera in the Park. This is an exciting event. I suppose it's almost as exciting as opening night for the audience, especially if you can't attend opening night. And here we have almost 20,000 opera lovers. What's it like singing in San Francisco, Mr. Mauro? You made your debut last night in Norma's Pagliacci, and this is your debut in San Francisco. How would you rate our audience here?
Beautiful. Absolutely wonderful. Doing an opera that I wasn't quite so sure that I should be doing because it's for the ladies. But last night I think as they say in Europe, I did bang the nail in the ground. And they were lovely. Lovely.
Now,
do I say it correctly?
That's correct.
Lovely? Very good.
Now, of course, today both of you are singing for stars that we had hoped would be here, Luciano Pavarotti and Monserrat Caballe. And you're both singing here at the Opera in the Park concert for the first time. Rebecca, this is an exciting event for you, isn't it?
Certainly is, yes. You know, coming up through the ranks in San Francisco Opera, we do a thing called brown bag opera. I told someone this morning I was just going to pretend it was another brown bag at Menlo Park.
When did you get the call to come and sing?
No, last night at about 10 o'clock.
I understand, too, that you've been covering for Monserrat Caballe in Ballo, and you actually sang a rehearsal in preparation.
Yeah, I did an OCA. That's with the orchestra, chorus, and artists on stage.
Mr. McEwen told me that the orchestra was especially impressed by you, and they enjoyed working with you.
It was a nice evening. I enjoyed it, yeah.
What kind of support do you get from the people, say the musicians in the orchestra when you perform? Is that important for you?
When you're performing?
Or rehearsing, for that matter.
I think the greatest compliment a singer can get from an orchestra is generally a Sitz program. After you finish singing an aria or something, and they applaud with their bows onto the stands. I think that's a great compliment because I know they don't do that unless they really appreciate it.
The arias and the duets you're doing today, how did you determine those at the last moment? Was it a cruncher to figure out what you were going to sing today?
No, I think that is what was in the program. They said, do you know this, do you know that? And I said, well, I sang it 10 years ago, but I'll have a bash at it. That was a 4-letter word, but that is a good one. A bash at it. Correct?
That's correct.
Very good.
What about you? When did you realize that you had to step in to Luciano's shoes?
Too late, and they don't, well, you know, I think my shoes are much too small to, you know, so no problem with that. When did they tell me, did you say? Too late and too early. So you figured that out.
I heard that you said, yes, you can call me, but not till 10 a.m.
Exactly. But then when they told me that, who was going to sleep anyway?
What about your debut last night? This is, of course, the first time you're singing in San Francisco. You've sung all over the world. You've sung at the Metropolitan. You have quite an audience this afternoon in Golden Gate Park. That says a lot, I suppose, about San Francisco. What's it?
It's fantastic to know that there is so many people that love this art, you know, and they really come here to enjoy it. That is just fantastic.
Where do you go after you sing your roles of your Poglione here in Norma in San Francisco? What is next for you?
Houston, Turandot. Just trying to keep the princess always happy, you see?
That's correct. What roles are you especially noted for, Mr. Mauro?
Well, not the one I would like to be noted for.
What is it?
That's Boheme, those things. But people prefer to have me to do heavier parts than that. In fact, today I'm lucky enough that I'm singing Boheme with this beautiful lady here, which I just met. And we smile at one another all the time, so that's beautiful.
You mean you've only had a rehearsal today together?
Yeah, I just met her. She was leaving and I was coming in. She said, how do you do? Goodbye.
What about you, Rebecca? What do you go on to? I understand you're really a product of the San Francisco Opera. You've come up through the ranks through the Marilla program, Spring Opera. You're singing a student matinee performance of Marriage of Figaro. What's next in store for you in opera?
Well, I go to Hawaii with Mr. Adler to do the Countess, and then Tatiana and Eugene Onegin. And then I'm moving to Germany, to Mannheim. I signed a contract with the Mannheim Opera Company. And I'm doing a lot of roles that I need to do now, and I'll be getting a lot of very good experience over there.
What's your goal? Do you have one? Do you have I suppose you have a series of roles you'd like to sing.
Oh, yeah.
Have any immediate goals?
As far as roles?
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I'm going to Mannheim. They're doing all the roles I want to do now. They're letting me do Mimi, Netta, Rosalinda, Pamina, the Countess, that sort of thing.
We have some opera fans in the background who are talking to Mr. Mauro.
I didn't know I became so well known.
Famous
suddenly.
so quickly.
They come through the walls.
Yeah,
that's right.
Well, you see what I mean? Can't hide anymore.
Rebecca, you're really a product, as we said, of the San Francisco Opera, an American opera singer. And Mr. Mauro, you were born in Trieste, and now you're living in Canada.
Yes.
I understand you just moved back to Canada. You were living in England?
Yes. 2 months ago, I was going to say 2 weeks ago. 2 months ago, we actually made the big move, the transatlantic move again, from England back to Canada.
Will you be coming back to sing at the San Francisco Opera?
I hope so. The sooner the better.
That's good. I'm sure the audience will be glad to have you back, especially after the concert this afternoon here in Golden Gate Park, which they're enjoying so much. Well, I want to thank you both for taking time at Intermission here, and from a very busy and hectic schedule today to talk with us. It's been a great pleasure. Ermanno Mauro and Rebecca Cook.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
KQED's John Rozak talking backstage during rehearsal with two of the stars of today's Opera in the Park concert, Rebecca Cook, Ermanno Mauro. There you see the M.H. de Young Memorial Museum here in Golden Gate Park, and some of the crowd, as you perhaps know, the music concourse is sandwiched between the de Young Museum on one side and then the other side, the California Academy of Sciences, and down a little bit below the de Young Museum, pardon me, and pardon me again, is the wonderful and world-famous Japanese tea garden.
We are now live in front of the band shell here at the Music Concourse in Golden Gate Park, and the excitement continues. We're surrounded by excitement. I'm talking now with Terry McEwen, General Director of the San Francisco Opera. Never a dull moment at opera.
Never a dull moment since I took over this place anyway, John. It may have been dull beforehand. I don't think so. That's not the way the animal works.
I understand, talking to some of your staffers. Here's a loop. I'll throw you for a loop right off. This is the most hectic beginning of the season you've ever had here.
I think it probably is, and it's a wonderful training for me. I'm having a ball. I really am. Obviously, I regret a couple of indispositions, and I feel very much for the artists involved. But it's a terrific challenge to my ingenuity, and I love that.
Well, they all say, though, that you keep everything under control. You're in equilibrium.
Absolutely.
It started, I guess, Friday with the announcement that Madame Caballe was indisposed, but we're very glad she made an appearance here today.
She was a marvelous trooper, and she went on, and halfway through the opera, she said to me, Terry, I'm going to finish the opera anyway, but I think I'll ruin my reputation in San Francisco unless you tell them I'm unwell, because I'm not singing as well as I would like to. And I said, my dear, with the greatest of pleasure, and I told the audience that. That took the pressure off Monserrat, so she sang even better, and it lit up the audience, and we had a wonderful evening.
It was a beautiful performance. You know, there are many high spots to the opera season. The opening, of course, Opera in the Park, you can't beat that. But as you look ahead, what's the next high spot this fall for you, if you had to put your finger on it?
The next high spot for me this fall is tomorrow night, the next performance of Ballo in Maschera. First of all, I presume Monserrat will sing, because she was in wonderful voice today in the park. She's very determined to, and it has the debut of a new tenor in San Francisco, another new tenor. Vasile Moldoveanu, the great Romanian tenor, is taking over the role of King Gustavo, the lead tenor part. So I've got one every night, John. I couldn't pick out a highlight. One of the things that I'm most excited about is the Carmelites, the dialogues of the Carmelites that we're doing, because the composer Francis Poulenc was a great friend of mine. I attended a couple of the world premieres with him, and the world premiere was in Milan in Italian. The role of Blanche was sung by a great soprano called Virginia Zeani, and she is singing Mother Marie with us in the Carmelites. We then went to Paris, where the role of Madame Lidouane was sung by Régine Crespin, and she's singing Madame de Poissy with us. And of course, in America, the American premiere was here in San Francisco, and it marked the debut of Leontine Price, and she's coming back to do that role again for me, and I'm absolutely thrilled.
She said, just for you. You seem to have a lot of friends in opera.
I thank God. Because I've needed them lately, and they've come through for me, I must say.
And you had two of your best last night in the Norma, which I understand is spectacular.
It was a great night for me. I'm particularly fond of Bellini, and I've heard an awful lot of performances of Norma. Sorry, I'm hoarse. Thank God I don't have to sing. I'll be honest with you, it may sound immodest, but as far as I'm concerned, last night was the greatest performance of Norma since Bellini wrote the piece.
Wow.
We had 3 standing ovations during the course of the performance. It was one of the most exciting evenings I've ever had in an opera house.
I can't wait to see it. With Bellini in mind, with the French works, is this what Terry McEwen is going to bring San Francisco?
Sure. This is what
Queen of Spades, too?
I have a special affection for French opera. I grew up in the second biggest French city in the world, Montreal, Canada, and I was brought up on French opera. All my first operas were French, so I have a special love for that opera, and you'll probably see a little more French opera than in the past. And I'm also a romantic, so I love Russian opera, and we'll probably have a little more Russian opera. It's difficult, however, to get Russian-speaking singers these days, since the artistic curtain is down. Ever since Afghanistan, we haven't had any artistic exchange between the United States and Russia.
Now, you know, the opener this year was a benefit for something that you're trying to do for the opera.
Right. We're on an endowment fund campaign. We are very underfunded. in that area at the opera, and I feel that for the future health of the company, we need to build up our endowment. So if I want to go to a corporation and ask them to give us $2 million for our endowment, we need $35 million. If I want to go to a corporation and ask them to give us $2 million, they say to me, what are you doing for yourself?
Yeah.
I wanted to start off with us doing something for ourselves. And thanks to the wonderful artists that agreed to appear on Friday night, Luciano Pavarotti, Monserrat Caballe, and the whole team, we raised over $500,000 for the endowment fund of the San Francisco Opera.
So you're on your way.
We're on our way. We also created a record. We raised more money in one evening that has ever been raised, I gather, in this city, in the history of this city.
For the opening
Yes.
night? How much did you make?
We actually, the income was more than $735,000. But when you subtract what it cost to put on the performance, we will probably have something like $600,000 for the endowment fund.
Fantastic.
Which is, of course, we only earn the interest off that money. That money doesn't come to us. An endowment is money that is invested, and the interest keeps us going.
Yeah.
So if the amount that's invested is not large enough, then the interest is not large enough to be significant for the most expensive art form in the world, which is opera.
You told me previously you really can't make money at opera. We know that. You can scarcely cover costs.
Right.
Does that mean that we can only concentrate on producing the fall season? Can you continue things like the affiliate program?
On the contrary, we're enlarging and, excuse me, I think putting a little more logic and continuity into the affiliate programs, all of our training programs. We have, of course, our wonderful summer festival, where we doubled the attendance last year compared to the year before. We had an average attendance of 83% with many sold-out houses. I think next summer's festival, with the beginning of our beautiful new ring, and I have now seen the sets, and it is the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen.
Who are the sets by?
And the sets are by John Conklin, American designer, and the director will be Nicholas Lanehoff, who is a German young director who was the last assistant of Wieland Wagner, and knows more about Wagner than just about anyone I know.
Looking ahead too, I guess what I meant by the ancillary program is you get fine talent like Rebecca Cook coming right out of.
And we have a lot of it. As a matter of fact, sitting here in the Park concert today are 4 or 5 young singers about whom I would be willing to put my hand in the fire and swear to you that they're going to be great stars within the next 5 or 6 years. That is, for me, in a way, the most exciting part of my job. Because working with great stars is fun, but I know them, and if you can afford their fees, essentially, you can get them. They're willing to do you special favors if they're friends, too. But
you need that.
But the development of young singers is tremendously important, and I want to develop young singers who will come again and again and again to San Francisco and be part of an ensemble company where we can add the stars, but we have a wonderful quality company that is not in danger of losing its standards.
Well, if the continued support of all these people here today can be turned into financial and artistic support of a company like the San Francisco Opera, I think we're in good shape for the future.
John, I was backstage with an Italian impresario who's visiting, and he said that there is no city in Italy where the love of opera is as evident as it is in San Francisco. So obviously I'm thrilled out of my mind to be running an opera house in this city.
You're very fortunate.
Right.
I want to thank you very much for taking time to talk. It's always a pleasure. And we're going to go hear some more beautiful music.
I'm looking forward to it. I got to go up there and tell the audience what's playing in the second half.
Back now to Bill Trieste.
John Rozak talking with the new general director of the San Francisco Opera, Terence McEwen. By the way, the new season of the San Francisco Opera, which is underway now with Verdi's The Masked Ball and Bellini's Norma, will be broadcast on our radio station, KQED-FM. The next broadcast will be this coming Friday night at 8 o'clock, Bellini's Norma, with Joan Sutherland, Marilyn Horne, and the tenor of today's Opera in the Park concert, Ermanno Mauro. The broadcasts on KQED-FM will be live Friday nights, usually at 8 o'clock, with a rebroadcast the following morning, Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. Those of you in Sacramento can hear the operas on a 1-week delay on the NPR station there, KXPR 88.9. They'll be Fridays at 6:30 in Sacramento on a 1-week delay. We're at intermission here of today's 10th annual Opera in the Park concert. Herbert Adler, conducting members of the San Francisco Opera Orchestra, with soloists Rebecca Cook, soprano, Ermanno Mauro, tenor, and earlier the distinguished soprano Monserrat Caballe, who sang 2 arias. By the way, if you'd like to learn more about some of the rest of this wonderful Golden Gate Park where this concert's taking place, the Friends of Recreation and Parks, one of the 3 sponsors of today's program, are offering free guided walking tours 4 times each weekend. For more information about that, you can call 221-1310. They have some really knowledgeable volunteer guides. It's an awfully pleasant way to spend part of a Saturday or a Sunday at Golden Gate Park. 221-1310 for more details. I might remind you again, those of you who may have just joined us, that Luciano Pavarotti, who had been scheduled to sing, is ill. He got a bad cold. He talked to Terry McEwen, the new general director, midnight last night, and then again at 8 o'clock this morning. As a matter of fact, according to Mr. McEwen, he could hardly speak, and that's why he's not here. In his place today, the tenor Ermanno Mauro, who made his debut with the San Francisco Opera Company just last night in Bellini's Norma, and who spoke a short time ago with KQED's John Rozak. In just a moment or so, I'm sure that Terence McEwen will be here to let us know what the second half of this concert will consist of. Incidentally, Terence McEwen, speaking with John Rozak, mentioned the fact that Leontine Price is coming here for Poulenc's Dialogue of the Carmelites. Many of you might like to know that live from Lincoln Center this coming Wednesday night, live from Lincoln Center, Leontine Price will be singing arias, Zubin Mehta, New York Philharmonic Orchestra, arias by Puccini and by Verdi. Incidentally, speaking of things on non-commercial public radio and non-commercial public television, a new Live from the Met season will be opening in October. Thursday, October 7th, Rosenkavalier, live from the Met, with Tatiana Troyanos, Kirite Kanawa, Judith Blagan, and Luciano Pavarotti in the role of the Italian singer. On Christmas Day, live from the Met, we'll have Humperdinck's Hansel and Gretel with Frederica von Stade and Judith Blagan. Later on, Idomeneo, Mozart's opera with Ileana Kotrubish, Frederica von Stade, and Pavarotti in the title role. And the final of this coming season of the Live from the Met will be Wagner's Tannhäuser with Eva Marton, Tatiana Troyanos, Richard Casilli. All this on non-commercial public television, non-commercial public radio. By the way, Terence McEwen, the new general director of the San Francisco Opera, who will be out on the stage in just a moment or so to introduce the second half of today's concert, was born in Ontario, educated in Montreal. He joined the British firm of Decca Records in 1950, spent the next 5 years overseeing that company's operations in Paris, then an additional 5 years for the company's London office. In 1959, he was made manager of the classical division of Decca's American equivalent, London Records, becoming vice president in 1973, vice president in 1978. And now, in just a moment, here is Tom Malloy, the general manager of San Francisco's Park and Recreation Department.
They've written the check for the last 10 years, and Dave is going to make a presentation to Kurt Herbert Adler, the General Director Emeritus and permanent conductor of these concerts, and I think Kurt is going to bring his lovely daughter Sabrina on stage with him to accept the award in his behalf.
Is it fair to call this the Super Bowl of opera?
I hope it is.
Two in 1 year for this city is quite a tribute. It's a tribute to you, of course, and for the Examiner, we're extremely proud that we're able to share a few moments with you. I thought for a moment I heard a line in back who described this as the Al Davis protest meeting. Mr. Adler, Maestro Adler, has promised us that he will never leave San Francisco. We have a montage of pictures, and I know most of you can never begin to see it, but it is a montage of great moments in photography of Herbert Adler and the San Francisco Opera, and is a small tribute from this newspaper, The Examiner, to Maestro Adler for what he has done in so many ways for this grand city.
Thank you very much. I would like to share the honors given to me with my colleagues who perform here today. Obviously, the orchestra is much included. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And with my baby daughter who makes her debut. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
David Halverson, managing editor of the San Francisco Examiner, and a tribute to Maestro Herbert Adler, who, of course, is conducting today's Opera in the Park concert. Now again, Tom Malloy
will announce the second half of the program.
There is Herbert Adler, his daughter Sabrina, that he held high just a moment ago as the tribute was paid to him. Daughter's going off stage now. Herbert Adler will be on stage to open the second half of today's concert just a moment. Now here is the new director of the San Francisco Opera, Terry McEwen.
Of what I would like to call the Opera Olympics, but somebody would come along and tell me I couldn't. Before we begin and before I tell you what you're about to hear, I would like to introduce a couple of very special people. When I was a little younger than I am now, I went to the opera and fell in love, out of my mind, with a lady with a beautiful voice and beautiful eyes, and she was fragile and gorgeous. And she made me cry. And at the age of 14, now I'm not embarrassed to cry, I'm 53. But at the age of 14, I was terribly embarrassed. I fell in love with her, and I sat in her hotel lobby and watched her leave and go whenever she came to Montreal, where I lived. And you can imagine what a thrill it is for me to have had here for my opening night, sitting in my box, the lady who started me off in opera, and who many, many times opened the San Francisco Opera herself, Bidou Sayao. Bidou, will you stand up, please, so the audience can see you? Madame Bidou Sayao. As I continued my opera going and my love of opera, I was to hear several very special ladies, and I remember particularly my first Delilah, who was a spectacularly beautiful woman whom I later saw sing and heard sing many other great roles, and who also sang many starring roles with the San Francisco Opera, and I'm thrilled that she's here today, Miss Blanche Libiamo. The second half of the program is as follows. Maestro Adler will open with the overture to Verdi's La Forza del Destino. Miss Cook will then sing from Madame Butterfly of Puccini, Un bel dì. Mr. Mauro will continue with one of the great tenor arias of the whole repertoire, Vesti la giubba from Pagliacci. Maestro Adler will then conduct one of my favorite tunes, the Hungarian March, the Rackoczi March from Berlioz's Damnation of Faust. And then, as a finale, we will have the final scene of the first act of La Boheme with Che gelida manina, Mi chiamano Mimì, and O Soave Fanciulla, sung by Rebecca Cook and Ermanno Mauro. Enjoy, enjoy.
Terence McEwen, the new general director of the San Francisco Opera, letting the audience here at San Francisco's Golden Gate Park know the second half of the program. Now on the podium once again, Herbert Adler to conduct the orchestra in the overture to Verdi's opera La Forza del Destino. Heard Herbert Adler conducting members of the San Francisco Opera Orchestra in the overture to Verdi's opera La Forza del Destino. The opening work on the second half of today's 10th annual Opera in the Park concert from, of course, the Music Concourse in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park, an audience of over 25,000 music lovers. Next, soprano Rebecca Cook in an aria from Puccini's Madama Butterfly. One fine day, un bel dì, one fine day, Butterfly sings in the famous aria, we'll see the smoke rising from a ship on the edge of the horizon. Although 3 years have passed since her American husband sailed away, she remains steadfast in her confidence that he'll return to her at last. With fervent emotion, she sings of the joy that she'll know when his ship returns and he comes to find her. Till then, she waits. Now, soprano Rebecca Cook with Kurt Herbert Adler, San Francisco Opera Orchestra, and the favorite aria Un bel dì from Puccini's Madama Butterfly. soprano Rebecca Cook in the aria Un Bergi from Puccini's Madama Butterfly. Here at this 10th annual Opera in the Park concert, Herbert Adler conducting members of the San Francisco Opera Orchestra. Rebecca Cook again acknowledging the applause of today's audience. As you know, she is substituting part of this concert for the ailing Monserrat Caballe, who did sing 2 arias at the beginning, but the remainder of the program is being sung on last-minute notice by Rebecca Cook. And now we'll have one of the 2 or 3 most famous of all tenor arias, the aria Vesti la giubba from Leoncavallo's Pagliacci, sung by tenor Ermanno Mauro, who made his debut last night for the San Francisco Opera in Bellini's Norma, and he is substituting at today's concert for the ailing Luciano Pavarotti. Vesti la giubba is the anguished cry of a heartbroken clown who's just learned that his wife has betrayed him. The show must go on. He must laugh and perform for his audience, hiding his grief behind a smile. Put on your costume, your makeup, he sings bitterly, and laugh, clown, over your love destroyed. And there, once again, soprano Rebecca Cook, standing along with Herbert Adler and concertmaster Zavan Malikian, once again acknowledging the applause of the orchestra and the audience here at the 10th annual Opera in the Park concert. In just a moment, our tenor, Ermanno Mauro, one of the leading tenors of the Metropolitan Opera, will be on stage to perform that very, very famous tenor aria, Vesti la giubba, from Leoncavallo's Pagliacci. As I mentioned a moment ago, it's the aria of a man who's just learned that his wife has betrayed him. He's a clown. He's got to laugh and perform, hiding his grief behind a smile. And now, coming on stage, the man who just received notice of this concert a few hours ago, tenor Ermanno Mauro, who, with Herbert Adler, the San Francisco Opera Orchestra, the famous aria Vesti la giubba from Leoncavallo's Pagliacci. the famous tenor aria Vesti la giubba from Leon Cavallo's I Pagliacci, performed by tenor Ermanno Mauro, with Herbert Adler conducting the San Francisco Opera Orchestra. Tenor Ermanno Mauro with a bouquet of flowers, certainly well-deserved for filling in the last minute of today's Opera in the Park concert for ailing Luciano Pavarotti. Next, we'll have Maestro Herbert Adler conducting members of the San Francisco Opera Orchestra. Once again, tenor Ermanno Mauro, who, by the way, will return after the next orchestral piece, along with soprano Rebecca Cook, to sing the two wonderful arias and the duet from the first act of Puccini's La Boheme. Ermanno Mauro acknowledging the applause of the audience here at Golden Gate Park, this 10th annual Opera in the Park concert. Just a moment, the famous Rackoczi March from Berlioz' Damnation of Faust. Berlioz used the term dramatic legend to describe his setting of the Faust story. Work is operatic in character. Once again, Ermanno Mauro, who, leading tenor of the Metropolitan Opera, made his debut in San Francisco last night in the performance of Bellini's Norma. And as Terence McEwen said, we're going to hear a great deal more of Ermanno Mauro here in San Francisco. Berlioz' Damnation of Faust is operatic in character, written in the form of a cantata or a concert piece. In its opening scene, Faust is on the plains of Hungary, where he sees a regiment of soldiers marching past to the stirring trains of the Rackoczi March, whose melody is a Hungarian national air. Berlioz had orchestrated the march while in Vienna on a concert tour, but its great success prompted him to shift the opening scene of his Faust story to Hungary so that the music of the march could be included. Now, the Rackoczi March from Berlioz' Damnation of Faust. the Rackoczi March from Berlioz's Damnation of Faust, played by Herbert Adler, conducting members of the San Francisco Opera Orchestra. The applause here, of course, at Golden Gate Park. 10th annual Opera in the Park concert. Maestro Adler asking the orchestra to stand. He's just shaking hands with his concertmaster, Zalvin Malikian. Herbert Adler, who retired just 1981 as the general director of the San Francisco Opera, is now Director General Emeritus. Now for the finale of today's Opera in the Park concert, the two arias and the duet, which conclude Puccini's opera La Boheme, perhaps some of the best-loved music in all of opera. The young poet, Rodolfo, warms the cold hand of Mimi, tells her about himself in the aria Che gelida manina. Mimi responds in the aria, Mi chiamano Mimi. They call me Mimi, she tells him, but her name is really Lucia. Then Mimi's aria is followed by the rapturous duet O Suave Fanciulla. Mimi and Rodolfo declare their love. She agrees to go with him to a Christmas Eve celebration. As they depart together, they sing of their love in lyrically soaring phrases. Now on stage at the Opera in the Park concert, soprano Rebecca Cook, tenor Ermanno Mauro, and Herbert Adler in the two arias and the duet, which conclude the first act of Puccini's opera La Boheme. the aria Che gelida manina from Puccini's opera La Boheme, performed by tenor Ermanno Mauro, where he sings to Mimi, tells her about himself, talks about his love for her. Mimi now responds in the aria Mi chiamano Mimi. She tells them that they call her Mimi. Her name is really Lucia, makes her living sewing embroidered flowers while she dreams of spring and love and of the fragrance of real flowers which her own creations like. Following the poet Rodolfo's aria, performed just a moment ago by Ermanno Mauro, now soprano Rebecca Cook, to sing Mimi's aria, the aria Mi chiamano Mimi. soprano Rebecca Cook in Mimi's aria from the first act of Puccini's La Boheme, Il Chiamano Mimi. That aria is followed by the rapturous duet, O Suave Fanciulla. Mimi and Rodolfo declare their love. She agrees to go with him to a Christmas Eve celebration. As they depart together, they sing of their love in lyrically soaring phrases. The rapturous love duet, O Suave Fanciulla, which concludes Act 1 of Puccini's opera La Boheme, performed at this Opera in the Park concert by tenor Ermanno Mauro, soprano Rebecca Cook, with the San Francisco Opera Orchestra conducted by Herbert Adler. Audience here at Golden Gate Park is on its feet, congratulating and saying thank you to these two wonderful young singers who, with very short notice indeed, came here to sing for the opera-loving San Francisco audience, a sign by the crowd saying bravo. And I think those words, bravo, bravissima, are in the minds and the hearts of everyone here on this wonderful sunny day, the 10th annual Opera in the Park concert. Once again, soprano Rebecca Cook, tenor Erna, Ermanno Mauro, Herbert Adler, acknowledging truly enthusiastic and grateful applause of the audience here at the Bandshell Golden Gate Park. Orchestra is on its feet, acknowledging the applause and the thanks of the soloists. As you can see, a crowd of some 25,000 San Francisco opera lovers is here. Balloons galore. There they are, all the colors. There have been soap bubbles. It's been one of those wonderful, traditional, joyous afternoons. The Opera in the Park, the 10th year. The sun couldn't have shone more brightly, more warmly. I doubt if any singers have received a warmer response than all the singers on today's program. Also on the program to sing 2 arias, although she was ailing, was soprano Monserrat Caballe. Then, concluding with this wonderful love duet, the 2 arias in the duet from Puccini's La Boheme, going off stage now with their balloons. Soprano Rebecca Cook, tenor Ermanno Mauro, Herbert Adler conducting the San Francisco Opera Orchestra. The audience here at the Bandshell Golden Gate Park is still on its feet. I suspect that the audience is looking for an encore, and I'm not sure whether they're going to get one or not. Whether the singers can sing with balloons in their hand remains to be seen. But I suspect, from what I can see from here, that it's very likely that we'll have an encore to this 10th annual Opera in the Park concert. It's a tradition to have an encore. However, there go our stars, our singers today. Rebecca Cook, soprano. Ermanno Mauro, off stage. I also suspect that they'll be called back once again. Herbert Adler, I believe, is still on stage. And there they come once again, along with Maestro Adler. And now I do think we're going to have an encore. It's the wonderful drinking song, Libiamo, from Verdi's La Traviata. It's from the first act. The hostess, Violetta, has prevailed upon her new admirer, Alfredo, to lead her guests in the singing. And here it is. wonderful drinking song, the Brindisi, from the first act of Verdi's La Traviata. The new general director of the San Francisco Opera, Terence McEwen, bestowing his kisses upon the singers, the tenor Ermanno Mauro and soprano Rebecca Cook. I'm not sure if there's ever been a more joyous rendition of the Brindisi from Traviata than the one that we've just witnessed. Where else would someone come out on stage and give the conductor of the orchestra a glass of champagne and wine, and then the general director also, everyone toasting one another, as we all should in a drinking song. And believe me, this audience here at Golden Gate Park for this 10th annual Opera in the Park concert is joining in the toasts and the cheers and the absolute joy of this occasion. As you undoubtedly saw, the singers not only had glasses of spirits in their hand, but it was also a bunch of beautiful balloons, which during the middle of the drinking song went up, and we lost power completely. We lost both the sound and the picture. Now we have the sound, and I believe, I hope, that you have a picture, because it's a glorious sight indeed. Here at Golden Gate Park, the audience is still on its feet. It's been on its feet ever since the conclusion of the wonderful drinking song, which concludes Act One of Verdi's La Traviata, performed by tenor Ermanno Mauro, soprano Rebecca Cook, Kurt Herbert Adler conducting the San Francisco Opera Orchestra, also on hand, on stage with glass in hand, and toasting the singers, the orchestra, and this audience of San Francisco opera lovers. The new director of the San Francisco Opera, the new general director, Terence McEwen. Here once again, soprano Rebecca Cook, along with Maestro Adler and tenor Ermanno Mauro, the wonderful singers and the wonderful conductor who once again have provided San Francisco opera lovers with perhaps one of the most joyous occasions of any opera season. The traditional annual San Francisco Opera in the Park concert. Some 25,000 San Franciscans have gathered here. They started gathering probably around 5 o'clock this morning. There's been wonderful food. Their tenor Ermanno Mauro, soprano Rebecca Cook, Kurt Herbert Adler going off stage. It's been a wonderful afternoon, as it always is, on these concerts. An absolutely wonderful, wonderful afternoon. Concluded with the Brindisi, the drinking song from La Traviata. Just before that, we had the wonderful two arias and the love duet from the final act of Puccini's La Boheme. Earlier, we had works for the orchestra. We had our tenor, Ermanno Mauro, in a wonderful performance of the famous tenor aria, Vesti la giubba from I Pagliacci. Miss Cook singing the aria Un bel dì from Madonna Butterfly. Just before today's concert began, KQED's John Roszak had the opportunity of chatting with the General Director Emeritus of the San Francisco Opera, Kurt Herbert Adler, and our conductor on today's concert.
Mr. Adler, you're no stranger to the out-of-doors. You've been bringing music to opera fans out of doors for many years here at Opera in the Park. Is this the largest crowd you've ever played to?
I'm sure it's the largest crowd in San Francisco. However, I used to conduct many concerts at the lakefront in Chicago while I was living there. I remember specifically two occasions. One with Giovanni Martinelli when he drew 175,000 people, and one with Grace Moore when we had close to 300,000.
Whoa.
That was upset the whole city.
How was the traffic then?
The traffic was incredible, and I was living on the near north side. I drove down south on Michigan Avenue, and it got worse and worse, and I couldn't move. And I said, my God, how do I get to the stand there? So I went on the wrong side of Michigan Avenue and drove. Naturally, the first policeman who saw this stopped me and said, where do you think you are going? And I said, I'm terribly sorry, I'm part cause for all this. Right. So that was in the early 40s, and I still had a car with a running board. Mm-hmm. So he jumped on the running board and let me go on the wrong side and took me all the way to the Grand Park. I came there so late that I had no time to go in the dressing room. I jumped on the stage, and during the war, we started with the Star Spangled Banner.
Well, of course, today you were here early enough.
I was early enough. I've learned my lesson.
Yes. And you've, of course, had a rehearsal with the orchestra. And
I rehearsed yesterday at the Opera House, and we rehearsed here this morning, and when we came here, there were thousands and thousands of people already here in the audience. In Pennsylvania, it's really very, very difficult to rehearse, because it's impossible for the audience to sit still and not to talk, because they don't come only to hear music, but they come also to enjoy themselves and have a good drink. So it gets louder and louder, and I finally asked them today when we rehearsed La Boheme if they please would listen and not participate.
You asked them that?
This morning.
How do you choose what to play for an out-of-doors concert?
There are certain things which we prefer not to do outdoors because it just doesn't fit, either the instrumentation doesn't fit. Well, naturally, it depends also on the principles, and when I choose something for orchestra selection, I choose music which the people may like, and I think I have a feeling what goes and what doesn't go, although I have also selected sometimes little intermezzi and thought afterwards, oh, we shouldn't have taken that.
And then you get a quick rehearsal, of course, with the soloists.
Oh, yes. Well, this afternoon, my friend Monserrat didn't show up for rehearsal because she's really sick. So I said to her, okay, we watch each other in the afternoon and we'll do it. But that's the first time that it is this way. Otherwise, we always rehearse, usually with piano first, and then with orchestra, and then the concert. But I have done so many concerts with Pavarotti in recent years. You know, we did a concert last week at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles. And so he repeats the arias he does, so some of the arias I don't rehearse with him.
You're as busy nowadays, it seems, conducting as you've always been. I understand you're off to Hawaii and you have a film career?
Well, it comes to me, and I won't say no, and I need something to do besides having my babies. But I am here now, and the next thing I have to organize is a memorial concert for my friend Calvin Simmons, who died so miserably in this pond. On Monday, the 20th of September, at the Paramount Theater, we have a memorial concert where all the active conductors in San Francisco will participate. The Dart will conduct, the Cotto, friends of Calvin's, maybe Bacon, and they asked me to close the program. And they don't want it to be a program that is really down. They want me, for instance, to end with an orchestra piece is very much up.
What are you going to end with?
I don't know. They asked me to do the Meistersinger Prelude, and it's a very strange thing to do for a memorial concert, and maybe that's what Calvin was all about.
It was energy and a positive attitude.
He and I were really very close, and first it was a boy whom I watched, and it was a young man. I tried to help, and finally a friend when he became a man, and I must say, he had an incredible development, I would say, during the last 9-12 months or so. He grew as a musician, as a conductor, as a person. But as I said when I spoke at his services, I said, look, we mustn't look ahead, what we cannot have. But he gave us so much in such a short time, and that we shall not forget.
Well, the music today that we hear here in the Opera in the Park reminds one of people like Calvin who devote their lives to opera, and it's that continuing spirit, I think, in the music that we remember him by. I think so. We're talking about conducting opera.
John Roszak talking with the General Director Emeritus of the San Francisco Opera, Kurt Herbert Adler. That concert that Kurt Herbert Adler was talking, of which he is artistic coordinator, the memorial concert for Calvin Simmons, will be on Monday night, September 20th, Monday night, September 20th at the Paramount Theater. The conductors participating is Maestro Adler mentioned, among them Ado DeVart, George Cleve, Dennis DeCoteau, Kent Nagano, Joseph Liebling, Mady Bacon. The Wagnerian tenor, Jess Thomas, will sing. There are memorial choruses, special choruses made up of current and former members of the Oakland Symphony, the San Francisco Boys Chorus, the San Francisco Opera Chorus. Memorial concert for Calvin Simmons, Monday night, September 20th, Paramount Theater. all the artists are contributing their services to the Calvin Simmons Memorial Fund, a fund established by the Oakland Symphony, and the concert I should have mentioned earlier will be broadcast on our radio station, KQED FM 88, Calvin Simmons Memorial Concert on Monday night, September 20th, coverage on KQED FM 88. Well, we're almost at the end of today's coverage of this wonderful Opera in the Park, the 10th annual event. Our soloists on today's concert were tenor Ermanno Mauro, who made his debut just last night with the San Francisco Opera in Bellini's Norma, soprano Rebecca Cook, who sang last year the opera Michaela in Carmen. Miss Cook substituted for a portion of the program for the ailing soprano Monserrat Caballe, who, despite her illness, did come here to the park and near the opening of the program did sing 2 arias and a wonderful reception from the crowd. Ermanno Mauro, the tenor, is substituting today, both tenor and soprano, on very short notice for the ailing Luciano Pavarotti, who, as Terence McEwen, the new general director, explained at the beginning of the program, had called him last midnight, said that he was worried because he'd begun to get a cold the opening night of San Francisco Opera on Friday night. Last night he was worried, and this morning at 8 o'clock he called Terence McEwen and could hardly speak. And just a moment or so, here we conclude today's 10th annual Opera in the Park. From the Music Concourse of San Francisco's Golden Gate Park. Presented by the San Francisco Opera, Terence A. McEwen, General Director, and by the San Francisco Examiner and the Friends of Recreation and Parks. Featured soloists, soprano Monserrat Caballe, soprano Rebecca Cook, and tenor Ermanno Mauro. With the San Francisco Opera Orchestra, conducted by Herbert Adler. And so we're just about to the conclusion of today's 10th annual Opera in the Park. A crowd of over 25,000 assembled here at San Francisco's Golden Gate Park. They came this morning with banners, with balloons, with soap bubbles, and with all kinds of wonderful food. It's a wonderful traditional event here in the city by the Golden Gate. Probably as joyous an event as anyone will find anywhere on the globe. We certainly hope that you enjoyed it. Seen, of course, on KQED, Channel 9, San Francisco, and non-commercial public radio, KQED FM 88, San Francisco, and in Sacramento on KVIE, Channel 6, Sacramento, and Stockton. By the way, the 60th season of the San Francisco Opera, which just began and which is underway with the Masked Ball in Norma, is being broadcast on our radio station, KQED FM. Radio broadcasts are Friday nights, usually at 8 o'clock, with a repeat broadcast the following Saturday morning at 11. Next broadcast will be on Friday, September 17th, the broadcast of Bellini's Norma with Joan Sutherland, Marilyn Horne, and the tenor who substituted at the last moment on today's program, Ermanno Mauro. The remaining season of the San Francisco Opera will be on KQED FM, and KQED FM is also broadcasting the entire season of the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock. Well, the crowd hasn't left yet. They don't want to leave. They want to be here because I think everyone here has had probably one of the most joyous experiences of their life. It's been a wonderful day in San Francisco. We certainly hope that you've enjoyed it. We've enjoyed being here. It's been a wonderful audience and a wonderful time, and this is Bill Trieste speaking on behalf of John Rozak and me, hoping that you've enjoyed it and all looking forward to next year's Opera in the Park.
Production and broadcast of Opera in the Park by KQED was made possible in part by funds provided by the San Francisco Examiner. Major funding was provided by the members of KQED.